Hi, everyone. Welcome to Lazy Hype, where we talk all things wellness. Today, I have the lovely Kay here from Latinas Poderosas. Kay,
Hello.
thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to be on the podcast here with you.
I feel like our worlds kind of organically collided. You were having an event at Satari, which I had heard about.
Mhm.
And then we posted the podcast. You reached out saying you love Ashby and you were doing your event there. And then I like aligned it and I was like, oh, I remember about that event. I'm so bummed I didn't make it. Um, and then I was like, but wait, I love you. I love what you're doing. Like, come on the pod. And so here we are. So thank you again.
Yeah.
I'm so curious as to how your platform got started, and not just thank you for being on the podcast, but thank you for being a voice and, a Latina that's like putting amazing content out there that's like inspiring. Seriously. So thank
Mhm.
you for many of these things.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I appreciate the compliments and the feedback on Latinas Poderosas. It is really a platform intended to celebrate community, amplify voices, and just be overall, a positive space for Latinas to feel seen, to learn, to support one another. So it really has become this in when I first started the platform, it was more so a space for myself to learn about who I was and where my family came from, understanding Latinidad and the complexity of Latinidad. So initially it was a platform, just a space so I could learn about who I am culturally. And then it evolved into something bigger and a space where others felt seen, felt heard, and appreciated. So it's been a journey. Was working in corporate. I was working at one of the largest beauty companies, and I was early on in my career. My background is in advertising, and I was in a position where I was at the beginning of digital. So I entered advertising when social media became this big thing. I remember all the articles that came out from Ad Age saying that social media was just a trend, that it wasn't going to stay long, that traditional advertising was still the way to go, billboards, commercials, print ads. But I had the opportunity to help develop social media for a beauty company. And it started with Facebook and then Instagram, and then evolved into all the new platforms that started to come out. And I was specifically focused on multicultural. And that's where my entire career has very much been focused on multicultural, which is a space that I love. And again, it stems back to my upbringing, growing up in a very diverse neighborhood. So while I was there building social, I started to work with creators and influencers. And I started to see how the PR team would put together events to really create community and celebrate a product. And I loved it. Again, I was on the multicultural team. So I was surrounded by folks of color. I loved it. I loved seeing the just people come together and celebrate and feel appreciated. But I felt like something was missing. Although I loved, celebrating and creating for beauty and the beauty industry, I felt like I wanted to use my skills to do something beyond the beauty space. So I went back to my cubicle one day after, a long day in the office. And in my office space, I had a photo of Selena Quintanilla, and then I had a photo of Frida.
Wow.
And I was like, who do I know beyond these two icons? There has to be more. How can I create a space that cultivates community and we're celebrating something, but it's not a product, it's not a brand. How can I tie it back to culture? So I just started to post. I started to identify women in the community that were doing, making history, making moves, starting businesses. Um, and then it started to evolve into something bigger where it started to get a following. And then the content evolved from there. I realized that I was not just posting for myself. Now I had others following, and I had to represent in a bigger way. Um, I forgot to mention that I'm originally from Houston, Texas, and I moved to New York City to pursue my career in advertising. So going from Texas, where the majority of the culture, I would say, is Mexican Tejano, Mexican American, and then going to the East Coast where it's very Caribbean, it was an opportunity to learn about Latinidad in the East Coast,
Yeah.
coming from Texas. And then from there, from living in New York for about 8 years, I transitioned to the West Coast. And the West Coast is, again, very Mexican American, but it's also Central American. So I feel like I've lived in 3 cities, 3 large hubs where Latinidad thrives and thrives in different ways. So I've taken my learnings from each city that I've lived in, and I've kind of just evolved Latinas Poderosas to highlight as much of the diversity within our culture because Latinidad is so complex. It's not something that it's more than one identity and one experience. There's just so much. And we're very alike. Our communities are very alike, but they're very different at the same time. And it's important to learn about those differences and appreciate those differences. Just so we could become a more unified community.
That's a really cool story. So it started with your curiosity into
Yeah.
learning more about like your own personal culture identity, let's say, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then you're realizing that you're just marketing product, but you're like, but I
Mm-hmm.
love the team. I love the cultural aspect. Cause like at its core, you had almost planted this seed that you were with like your career merged. So you just like made the
Mm-hmm.
perfect baby with your platform.
Yeah.
I love it. So congrats, because that's like a really authentic fruition to like your core vision, I feel like, of what was like
Mm-hmm.
meant to be. So
Yeah, and I really wanted to use the skills that I had learned in corporate to give back to community and find a way to make a better space for community.
yeah, yeah. I feel like it always starts with corporate.
Yeah. But corporate is a great launching pad for folks to build their own brands, businesses. Again, I feel like every week I connect with either a small business owner, a bigger brand, or individuals in the community that are trying to create their own something of their own. And a lot of the stories that I hear is back to what you just said. It's folks that have some corporate experience and then they realize, you know what? This can't be it. I just can't be building for someone else. Let me just use my skills to give back. And I would say that that's um, one of my favorite things is, and something that I hear over and over again from folks in the community is everyone has this passion and desire to give back somehow,
Totally.
whether it's their time, their learnings, or even a free cup of coffee. I feel like the community is very much it's instilled in our DNA.
No, I agree. I mean, that's why I have this podcast.
Yeah.
That's so,
Yeah,
that's so funny.
true.
So you're such a powerful woman. You have this like powerful platform. What advice do you give women to empower themselves to find their voice?
What I reflect on and what I look back on is where I come from, what sacrifices my family made. I always think of my grandparents who didn't have 90% of the opportunities that I have now. And that's what empowers me to continue. Whether I come across something that's challenging, or really pushes my limits, and I feel like I start getting moments of doubt, I go back to that. I go back to the roots and my personal roots, but also our history is very resilient, and that's what empowers me to continue. My move to New York City was very much a testing. It tested me in so many ways. I only had a few $1,000s. I was on Craigslist, sleeping on couches, trying to make my dream a reality. I graduated during the recession, so the opportunities were very slim. I was the first to go to college. I was the oldest in my family, in my immediate family, and I had to put myself in a very uncomfortable situation to just make my dream possible. And the one thing that I always thought about was, okay, if my family can do it, then I have no excuse. I have endless opportunities and endless ways to make my dream come true. So that's what I always go back to.